Good morning, everyone, and welcome to HCD's Office Hours for ESG. My name is Anthony Zapata, and I will be your moderator for Office Hours. We're going to hold for just a minute or two for more of our colleagues to join us for today's session. In the meantime, as always, I want to invite you all to introduce yourselves in the chat with your name and the region you represent, and we will begin in about 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you. For those of you who are just arriving, just letting you know that we are waiting a minute or two for all of folks to join in today's office hours. In the meantime, you can introduce yourself in the chat with your name and the region you represent, and we will begin in about 1 minute. All right. Good morning, everyone. And I think we're ready to get started. Again, welcome to this week's office hours for ESG. My name is Anthony Zapata, and I am your moderator for today. If you're just joining us, please go to the chat and introduce yourself with your name and the region you represent. And as a reminder to everyone, this office hour session is being recorded for public record. Next slide, please. We'll jump right on into the logistics for today. How to ask a question. All questions must be submitted in the question box. Please type your organization and question into the question box, and we'll read those questions out loud at the end of the presentation, or today we're going to do it a little different. We might do it in the middle of the presentation, and we will provide answers throughout in the Q&A box, or we will read them out loud. We have our full ESG team here, including ESG manager, the ESG program manager, our ESG team specialists, and the ESG representatives who can assist you. And just one last point on this. Veterans, you all know this, but for those of you who may be new, please don't put your comments or questions in the chat, because it often just gets missed as the chat just keeps going down, and put them in the Q&A box, and we will address them then. Next slide, please. And please note that both the slides and the recording will be sent to all participants within approximately 2 weeks of today's session. Next slide, please. And let's see, we'll go ahead and jump into some of the updates. The application portal, as you know, is now open. March 28th remains the application due date at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, March 28, 2025. We anticipate that awards will be announced in July of 2025. Next slide, please. And on our grant update session here, just a quick reminder, we've covered this, I think, the last 2 office hour sessions. Performance milestone reminders. The contract time period is very short for the 2023 contracts. So the expenditure deadline is August 17th, just 6 short months away. And this represents the cutoff date for all expenses incurred under your 2023 contract. Another reminder on the timeline is that 80% of your ESG award must be expended by June 17th, 2025, which is just 4 short months away. Tying into that is we recommend getting your RFFs in as soon as possible, and to please submit them on at least a monthly basis. This expedites the RFF process and results in a faster reimbursement. And when they're submitted all at once, you can create a backlog, and they're all dependent on the, if you submit RFS 1, 2, 3, 4 all at the same time, RFF 1 first has to be reviewed, approved, and monitored before we can even begin work on 2, 3, and 4. So just a reminder to submit them monthly, but at least quarterly as stated in your standard agreement. Next slide, please. And another quick reminder, we've been harping on this in our emails, in our welcome letter, and also in the 2 previous office hours. The RFF requirements are slightly different for 2023 contracts, and moving forward into the 2024 will be similar. When you submit your first RFF, full backup documentation is required for all line items listed on the detailed expense report, and that is per component. So if the line items for staff expenses, examples of required documentation could be time cards and payroll documents. If you're submitting your first RFF for rapid rehousing, we need to, as per our agreement with HUD, we need to review full client files for every client listed on that RFF. If you're unsure what that means, we can provide you with a client file checklist for rapid rehousing and other ESG components. It's located on the ESG webpage, but we can also send it to you directly if you want to contact the NOFA inbox or your rep. All of the supporting documentation must be uploaded to eCivis. We cannot accept submissions by email, and please make sure to redact any PII. Let's see here. Also, one note, if you're awarded rapid rehousing or homelessness prevention funds, you must have approved policies and procedures in place prior to your RFF. We have been shooting those out to the approval letters out to our grantees. And if you haven't received yours yet, you can always reach out to us. And next slide, please. So those are the requirements for the first RFF, which is the full documentation of all line items on your detailed expense report. For your second RFF and subsequent RFFs, we require supporting documentations for only 2 line items per component. The grantee, you as the grantee, can select the 2 line items to document. If it's for rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention, please make sure to include the full client files and redact all PI. In rare case, the documentation may not be adequate for what we are required to review, and we do reserve the right to request additional information as applicable. Next slide, please. And a general update regarding, that was the 2023 contracts. Now we're moving to the 2024 contracts, the upcoming contracts. We will be posting the 2024 standard agreement contract templates, the exhibits that you have in your contracts each year, on the ESG webpage sometime within the next 2 weeks or so. This will give your agency and if you're a county entity, your county council, a chance to review the agreements in advance. And the intent is for our grantees to be able to review these. And if any potential hiccups are arising, we can be very proactive and address these issues prior to the standard agreement process. Also mentioned the approved policies and procedures letters that we are sending out. Make sure to include those letters with your 2024 NOFA ESG application. If you have questions on it, just let us know. We can help you out with that. Next slide, please. And as always, if you have a question on your RFFs or other ESG related items, please reach out to your ESG representative. Our email addresses are listed right there on the screen. Most of you already have contacted us and know us and can reach us real easy. But if you can't, you can always reach out to the ESG NOFA inbox. That's monitored Monday through Friday during normal business hours, and you will get a response. And the address is listed right there on the bottom of the screen. Next slide, please. So just a quick update, a lot of quick updates there. We're moving to the Spotlight series, and we're calling this a NOFA application TA, technical assistance. We wanted to do things a little different this time. We wanted to really address the many questions that you may have on the 2024 ESG NOFA application. So if we're going to go through this in 2 parts. The first part is I'm going to present on screen and answer, well, me and the team answer the most frequently asked questions, the questions we get every day from a variety of agencies and organizations regarding the 2024 NOFA. We will then, after we complete that, we will then open up the floor, and you can come off mute. You can raise your hand. You can come off mute, and you can ask your question. And what I just did raise your hand like that. It's actually a button on the screen. You just raise your hand, press the button, raise your hand, and you can come off mute and ask your question. You can also submit it in the Q&A box, and we will be addressing those throughout the process as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started on this unique office hour session. Next slide, please.
Hi, Anthony. I just wanted to jump in real
Yes,
quick.
go right ahead.
This issue has come up before in meetings, and I noticed it's just come up in this office hours. Unfortunately, HCD has a policy against AI assistants, and I just noticed there was one that joined in this office hours. And the reason for that is PII. If anyone comes off mute, that is one of our grantees and talks about any of their clients or anything that is personal identifying information, and it is being recorded by your um, assistant, we can't redact it on our end. And so we're requesting that you either turn your assistant off or log out and then log back in without your assistant. We just HCD policy does not allow it at this time because we have no control. So if you could please do that, we would really appreciate it. We've had to do that in other meetings. Teams, we are allowed to just not allow the AI assistant in, but we can't do that through the Zoom portal. So I just wanted to clarify that. Anyways, go ahead. Thank you, Anthony.
Excellent. Thank you for that update, Amanda. We really appreciate that. Okay, let's dive into the questions. And the format here is on the screen, it's just the way it looks. I'm going to read the question, then I'm going to read the answer. And this is unique to us, so we're kind of freewheeling here. We're playing it by ear. We want you to be involved. And so if you want to, build off that question, or maybe we didn't address it, you can always put additional questions in the chat, or you can use the raise hand button and ask your question after we go through this session in the open session. So first set of question has to do with the resolutions. Can you confirm that the authorizing resolution must follow the template provided by HCD in order to be accepted as part of the ESG application? Yes. Applicants must follow the HCD provided templates when they are submitting their authorizing resolution. It's a must do. There's no gray area in this. So please use the HCD approved authorizing resolutions. Well, what if our local governing body requires an authorizing resolution in a different format than the HCD has provided? If that is the case, if you have a governing board that requires a template different from the HCD authorizing resolution, then you may submit 2 resolutions as part of the application. The first resolution will be on the required HCD ESG authorizing resolution template, and the second resolution will be a resolution that conforms to the local standards of your governing board. Next slide, please. Continuing with the resolutions, we realize this 3-year, 1 year is new for everyone. And so we want to provide as much guidance on this as possible. So if you're going to submit a 3-year authorizing resolution, do we enter the 3-year total or the 1-year total, the totals that are identified in Appendix A of the NOFA? For a 3-year authorizing resolution, you will list the 3-year amount in your authorizing resolution. For the 1 year, you will list the 1-year amount in your authorizing resolution. On the 1-year authorizing resolutions, we will update the budget each year, regardless. We are going to update the budget each year as per through an amendment. And so if you're going to do a 1 year, you will do a resolution each year. If you're going to do a 3-year, you only have to do 1 resolution at the time that you submit your application. Next slide, please. Okay, the next section is the racial equity section of the application. The ESG application and the ESG NOFA were all completed prior to recent presidential executive orders that have taken a lot of the HUD racial equity information off of their website. And so this is a question related to that. We've received this from just about everyone. The HUD COC analysis tool is no longer available. How can we complete this section without the data? And here is our recommendation. We recommend that you use the following data sources to complete this section of the application to the best of your ability. We've identified the time period. It's the same one identified in the ESG application in the NOFA. And we recommend using any data available from your local COC or county entity as available. We also recommend using Stella P information. A lot of you are very familiar with that and prefer to use that information, and or any available socioeconomic demographic data that your region may use that will address the racial equity section. And we realize that without the HUD COC analysis tool, our grantees may not be able to complete all the information on the form. We ask that you do your best in completing the application, and we will be reviewing the submitted data on a case-by-case basis, and we are always going to be available leading up to the application deadline and also throughout the process to review drafts and then to answer any questions you may have after you submit your application. Next slide, please. Another big section, the environmental review section of the NOFA. And so the first two questions have the same answer, but I'll go ahead and read them out loud. If we are not applying for capital improvements as part of our application, are we still required to complete and submit the environmental review form? The second question, very similar, we are a nonprofit agency. Are we still required to submit the signed completed environmental review form? The answer to both those questions is yes. The environmental review form is a federal ESG requirement that we are held to by HUD and that we must certify that the projects are exempt. In summary, yes. And the short answer is yes, you have to submit that. And we are happy to help and review those in advance. I've reviewed quite a few already, and we can provide feedback, we can help you. And at the bottom is the next question. Our 2024 ESG project includes emergency shelter and rapid rehousing activities. Do I need to provide forms for each activity, environmental review forms, or will one form that combines both activities work? It just depends on what your agency prefers to do. Your agency may submit one environmental review form if both projects, in this case, in this example, both projects are identified on the form and both projects are categorically exempt. Or we have other grantees that submit a separate environmental review form for each project. It's entirely up to you, but as long as the projects are listed and they're identified on the form and they are categorically exempt, that's fine. Either way will work. Next slide, please. And I hope I'm not going too fast. As mentioned, if you have follow-up questions to these frequently asked questions, please put them in the chat or excuse me, raise your hand and you can address it. We can address it after the fact. 1 second, please. Getting a little frog in my throat. So continuing the environmental review. We're going to use subcontractors to implement our ESG program. Our subcontractors have not been officially selected, and we have not determined funding amounts and contracts, and none of this has been completed. It won't be completed prior to application. Will it be possible to submit an environmental review form for our department in the application and then submit documents for subcontractors, excuse me, that's a mouthful, at a later date once we have selected them? Yes, the environmental review doc is at the project level. So your agency can submit the form signed by the person certified to do so for your agency prior to the selection of your contractors. You would submit your project environmental review document at the time of application. As necessary, a supplemental environmental review form identifying your subcontractors and exempted projects may be submitted at a later date once that has been completed by your agency. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're kind of moving into more general areas here.
Anthony,
Yes, jump
can I
in.
ask an environmental review question before you move on?
Of course.
Amy asked for environmental review for a nonprofit. Does the executive director for the nonprofit sign, or does the county official sign?
Your executive director should sign, or should be the authorized official to sign it. However, it varies case by case. If the relationship you have with your county is such that they are required to sign off on your documents, your environmental documents, that would be the case. However, the majority of the time, the executive director for the nonprofit will be signing that document. And if I'm not clear there, what I'm trying to say is that some agencies may have an agreement with their county where the county signs off on all environmental review for that particular agency. If that is the case, according to your bylaws, then you would have a county authorized official. If that's not the case, if that's not identified in your bylaws, then your executive director or authorized representative within your own particular nonprofit agency would sign the document.
She said, thank you.
No problem.
And then one more just popped up. On environmental review form funding section, we do not have a grant number yet. Do we leave it blank?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now you can move on.
Thanks, Amanda. Great questions. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to the general areas. Now, a lot of these questions are just one-off. Does this work? Yes. Does this work? No. So STD, the form STD 204. Is it only required for a nonprofit? Yes. Nonprofits will submit the STD 204. Government entities will submit a 10. Do these forms need to be signed by the authorized representative named on the resolution, or can another person sign? This is very similar to the question that we just addressed with Amanda. These forms need to be signed by the person in your particular agency authorized to sign financial documents. That can vary agency by agency. For example, you might list your project manager as the authorized representative in your resolution, whereas as per your agency requirements, the CFO must sign any financial document like a 204 or a 10. So it's going to vary agency by agency. It is the person within your
Well, it looks like Anthony has frozen. So I'm going to try
Frozen.
to I'm going to try to continue for him. Let's see how we do. So for who signs this, it needs to be the person who's authorized within your organization to sign that particular document. Next slide, please.
authorized to sign finance identify in your authorized resolution.
Anthony, are you back? Nope, you're muted.
Hello, everyone. My screen just went black and then everyone came back. So
Excellent. You're back.
I hopefully you caught everything I had to say there.
Hi.
And let me.
Hey, Anthony, this is Tim. I just want to jump in real quick. So could we go back a slide real quick? I think we just needed to cover one final question on the bottom. Yeah, perfect. Okay, thanks, Gio.
Yes, and so sorry for that. I think I just got kicked off the internet and now I'm back. And so I was talking about we cannot locate the sections in eCivis to upload the STD 204. You can locate the upload slots at the bottom of the application, right below the budget and goals. If that's not clear, we can always do a visual example when Tim is going to go online and provide another eCivis example in an upcoming slide. Next slide, please. Okay, and it's this slide right here. So perfect. Budget and goals, the budget and goals section of the application. In the budget, for our budget in eCivis, should we enter the 1 year amount identified in the NOFA Appendix A, or should we enter in the 3-year budget amount identified in the Appendix A? You should enter the 1-year amount. We will update the budget each year via an amendment. So for now, you enter in the 1-year total. Next question, for the indirect cost budget worksheet, should we enter in the 1-year or 3-year amount in eCivis? You guessed it, you should enter in the 1-year amount. Enter in the 1-year amount throughout. Assume a 1-year amount throughout as you're doing your application. I know that can be a little confusing because we're saying on the 3-year amount on the resolution, but this is a separate matter. This is the eCivis application. We will update this each year via amendment. And once again, it can be confusing. If you have questions on this, just let us know. We're happy to help. It's a new process here for everyone. The next question is, we cannot enter our budget and or project goals in eCivis. We've gotten this one a lot. We're going to have Tim take over here and provide an example in eCivis. Take it away, Tim.
All right, thank you, Anthony, and good morning to everybody. So I'm just going to share my screen here. So bear with me just a moment. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of start from the beginning for those who may not be quite familiar with how to get into the application portal. I know most of us probably are, but just to review one more time. So to access the 2024 ESG application, you can visit the ESG website, and this is our main website on hcd.ca.gov, and you can navigate down to the Apply Now icon, and then this little link here will come up for the eCivis eCivis portal. And so you will click on this link, and then this will take you to this screen right here, which will be the eCivis 2024 ESG application solicitation. And then you're going to click this apply button right here, and that's how you will be able to access and create your 2024 application. Okay, so just a reminder for those who may not have done that yet. So I'm just going to log into my account here. Okay, and then for those who may not have created an application yet, this little green button right here will be where you go to create new application for the 2024 application. But I do have one here that was created that's in draft mode, so I'm just going to click on that right here. And then most of us are probably familiar with this screen in eCivis, and so now this is where this is where it's a little trick that we discovered recently. And I know when we had our initial application demonstration 2 weeks ago, this part was not covered, so we do apologize for any confusion from people about how to edit their goals and budget. So a trick you can do is once you're in this screen of eCivis, you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Okay, so as opposed to not you don't have to log in with this little blue button here. You can if you'd like to, but it's not necessary. Okay, so you're already logged into eCivis. You're already in your application screen. And so if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see where it says application, budget, and goals all at the bottom here. Okay, and then if you've started any part of your application, any portion, your project title will show here. Okay, and the data was created. Now, what you're going to do to edit your budget and goals is you're going to go all the way to the right, and you're going to locate these 3 lines here under the Actions tab. Okay, so once you click on the 3 lines, you're going to see a little pop-up that says Edit Budget or Edit Goals. Okay, so I just want to remind everybody here on the call today that this is the only way that you'll be able to make those edits. Okay, if you try to edit your budget and goals through the regular application sections, you will not be able to do so. Okay, so please make sure that you scroll all the way to the bottom and then find this section and then click on those 3 lines, and you can edit your budget and edit your goals. Okay, so we're just going to click on the budget, and this will come up here. Okay, and then for those not familiar with how to enter the budget, I'm just going to go over just a quick tutorial on how to do that. And so some of us usually we'll see numbers up here and we can't enter. So you do not enter numbers here in the top boxes. You are going to have to enter by the component that you are applying for. Okay, so for instance, if it's street outreach, you're going to click on that street outreach hyperlink, and then these little boxes will come up here. So we have our regular street outreach costs, and then also street outreach indirect costs indicated here. Okay, and so the column or the box that you're going to want
Tim,
to.
Someone requested that you slow down a little bit. They're
Oh,
trying
sure.
to keep
Sure.
up so they can take notes.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So so this is the section, this is the budget section. And so once you're in the budget screen, you can click on the ESG component that you're applying for. And then all of the different components such as emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, and so forth, all of these budget sections will look the same. So just so everybody knows. And so when you're entering your budget, you're going to click only in the cost row, which is located right here. So you don't enter under units, unit cost, extended cost, just in the cost, okay? So you're gonna double click, okay? And then that will allow you to enter a figure. And then that will come up right there. And then it will pre-populate under your direct cost once you click out of that particular box, okay? And then also it will appear up as well. So you only have to enter these costs in the component, and then it will pre-populate at the top for your total budget. Okay, and again, that's the same for any component that's directly below. So it's the same process. If you're going to be applying for any indirect costs for any of the ESG components, you will also do a separate amount under the indirect cost row. Okay, and so that will be how you enter the budget. And then just to note, I know that we may not have covered this a couple of weeks ago. So if your agency will be applying for the match, you will also need to enter the match amounts, and that can be done under the other section, which is below all of the ESG components listed here, okay? And so you're gonna wanna click on the other right here. And then this little gray button right here will allow you to add a table. Okay, so you're gonna wanna add a table. And then Amanda, feel free to chime in if I'm missing some steps here. So, so in the title, we're gonna type in match. And then I believe it's, is it cost match, Amanda? Does that sound right?
It's volunteer. Oh, what is it? Sorry.
That's okay.
Keep going and I'll look. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Thank you. And so, and then also in the cost section, this is where you would enter, you know, whatever amount that was the match. Okay. And so if it's this number right here, and so, and then if you scroll all the way to the top, and then actually let me, let's see here. No, I believe Amanda. Now, if you want to chime in with it, I believe it's going to be. I'm not sure which one would be the correct. There is a drop down here for direct cost and indirect.
Direct. Oh, sorry, cost share. It's
Okay.
cost share.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, and it's cash match or in-kind match.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, under description. Okay.
Yes.
So you will do. You can type in the description here, cash match.
And then you would do another line for in-kind.
Perfect. Another row. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And then that would populate here. So whatever you would be applying for would be entered in this other section here. And then up at the top, you can see that the match will pre-populate in the match box up here. Okay, so I know we didn't cover that portion before. So if those of you applying for match had those questions still, that is how you enter your match amounts and then all of the components here as well. So, and then you can always save your changes. You can always don't feel that this is you know, set in stone once you enter the numbers. You can always come back and edit. And so, but if you want to save your changes and come back at a different time to make any changes or edits, you definitely can do so for that section. So, okay. And
Tim, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, it's Tuesday. Can you clarify that that match section is for the people who are applying for the match exemption, or or everybody has to have match, or is that they're supposed to be entering their match in that section?
let's see, Amanda, do you have any comments on that?
Everybody should enter match
Match. Okay.
Okay,
if
perfect.
until we award the match exemption, everyone
Right.
should put match in.
Okay. So it's not applying for match. You should be entering your match along with your budget. So
Yes.
any component for any amount, you have to have an even amount of match. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to hopefully make that clearer.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Tuesday. That's super helpful. So, okay.
And then someone asked him, can you remind us how to enter indirect costs, please?
Mhm. Absolutely, yeah. And so I'll just go up to the same component that we entered the street outreach in. Okay, so you're going to click on that hyperlink for the component you're applying for, and then you'll see two rows displayed once you enter that. And so if you are applying for indirect costs, it's located directly below the direct costs for that component. Okay, so if you're doing 100,000 for your direct street outreach costs, and you want to do let's just say 20,000 for indirect, you would enter that there, and then it would show up under your indirect costs for that component. So that would be the steps for applying for indirect costs. All right. So I'll give the screen back to Gio so we can continue the questions here. Back to Anthony.
I have one question in the chat. What if a project does not have match and is hoping for the waiver? Do they just put $0? The answer would be no, you're not guaranteed the match exemption. So I would look for a match because, like I said, you cannot rely on the match exemption. There's most likely going to only be one agency that gets the match exemption.
Thank you, Amanda. And let's see, we go to the next slide. And thank you, Tim, as well. Okay, now we're in we are continuing in the general questions section. So as I mentioned, most of them are one-off, but these three have to do with the COC, your continuum of care. If our COC is not applying directly for funding, does our agency, a nonprofit agency, still need to submit the COC recommendation letter with our application? Yes, you do. Who signs the COC recommendation? The person at your local COC who is authorized to sign their recommendation letters. So you would need to reach out to your local COC and ask for a recommendation letter if you've been selected through their process, and they will provide you with a COC recommendation letter. Now, this is an e-civis question. Our COC is not listed in the match exemption section. All California COCs are listed in this section. However, they are not in numerical order. So if you're counting down and going, okay, 525, 520, oh, 526 isn't there. We're not there. They're there, they're just not in numerical order. So just keep going down through the drop-down menu until you locate your local COC. Next slide, please. And this touches on what we just talked about with the match exemption. If our agency is not applying for the match exemption, there's a difference between the match section and the match exemption. Do we still need to sign the document, or can we mark it as complete and move forward on the application? If your agency is not applying for the match exemption, then your agency is not required to fill out this form. I believe there's a little button you can just, and he says you just can put complete and move on to the next section. So continuing with the match exemption, not the match to your grant, but an exemption to the match. Is the match exemption awarded to all applicants? No. As Amanda just stated, the match exemption is a very competitive process and will be awarded on a limited basis. And that could be just one or two applicants. Our COC is not listed in the match exemption area. Okay, we already got that one. Next slide. This is a very helpful topic. We know that especially for the new folks who are applying. This can be a bit overwhelming with all of the regulations and all of the steps you have to take and all of the I's you have to dot and T's you have to cross. Where can we find all of the requirements for the 2024 ESG NOFA application? Well, there's a few good spots for that. The NOFA itself, on pages 15 and 16 of the 2024 ESG NOFA, it is right there, it's identified the threshold requirements. That means the basic things you have to have for us to even review it. If you don't have the threshold, we can't even review it. So these are the basic items. Those are located on pages 15 and 16 of the NOFA. Also, pages 16 and 17 of the same NOFA lists the overlay requirements of the state requirements. That's more project level. So if you're applying for a rapid rehousing, it's going to identify some rapid rehousing, state and federal requirements, general contracting requirements are going to be outlined and referenced here as well. And then finally, the last portion, I believe, of the ESG application in eCivis is going to have a little checklist of items. And it's going to ask you, did you do this? Did you submit that? So there's plenty of resources out there for you in terms of where you can find the threshold requirements. And it just sometimes takes a little digging. And we would recommend that you review all of these. You cover the bases on these, your application should be just fine. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, here's another one. For those who've been doing this for a while, the 2024 application is different than previous years. Where can I find section blank? You know, they can't find a section they're familiar with, and where is that? We did that every year. Where is that? 24 application was streamlined. We wanted to improve the overall process. We wanted to make it easier for our grantees, speed up the review process, get that money awarded and out there to you as quickly as possible. So what are some of the changes that have been made? There have been changes in each of the component requirements. Some have been added, some have been deleted. There are new minimums required for participant triage, written standards, coverage areas, and housing problem solving. And there are new requirements in street outreach and emergency shelter in terms of diversion and rapid exit. We would recommend that you follow the application closely. If something's not there, yay, you have less work to do than you had to do in previous years. If it's something that is a bit confusing or you're not sure what to do there, reach out to your representative or the ESG NOFA inbox. We're here to help you. We know what's new, and we love to hear your questions. Next slide, please. All right, so now that was the frequently asked questions section where we went through and we looked at those questions that we receive over and over again. We addressed them. They're on the slides. You'll have that as a reference in a couple of weeks. And for this section, we want to kind of just take the formality out of this section of our office hours here. We want to hear from you directly. You can raise your hand with the button below and ask a question related to the 2024 ESG NOFA application, or you can put your question in the chat. I'm not in the chat Q&A, excuse me. But the main thing here is, you know, if we covered something too fast, or if it's not entirely clear, or if it's a different question altogether, we want to make sure that we address this and get this information out early in the process. We have about approximately a month before this is due. So let's be proactive and get to this as quickly as we can. So with that, I will quit talking. Oh, I'm sorry, one little caveat. If you have a question, if there's a question that's very, very agency specific to your agency, we really want to focus on the questions that will benefit the most folks out there, those general questions like we addressed with the resolutions or the budgets. So if your question, if we have to get way, way down in the weeds, we're probably going to recommend that we work offline, you know, after office hours or via email. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but otherwise we welcome all kinds of questions. And let's go ahead and get started. And Amanda, did we have anything in the Q&A?
Yes.
Okay.
So Molly asked if our local COC is applying directly for funding and plans to subcontract with local service providers, do we not need to apply? In previous years, we have applied for the balance of state competitive allocation ourselves. So the answer is you would need to apply if you are the COC and you are going to have your own contracts with your local service providers.
And if
It,
you're not, go ahead, Amanda.
no, go ahead. Go ahead,
And if
Anthony.
you're not the COC and you want to, I just literally addressed this question in the NOFA inbox. If you're not the COC, if you're a nonprofit or an agency that has to be approved by your COC, you must be approved through their selection process. And that COCs are limited to 2 applicants. And if they are applying, they're one applicant, and they'll select one other. If the COC is not applying directly and they're going to subcontract out to applicants, or I mean to service providers or nonprofits, they will select 2. And that process should be in place right now. It's a formal process that they're required to do by federal regulations and state requirements. So reach out to your local COC. If you're not the COC and you're unsure, reach out as quickly as you can, because this process is fast. We're already there. They may have already completed their selection process.
And
Go
I
ahead,
do want,
Ms. Renee.
Anthony, I do want to
Yeah.
add, if the COC is the applicant, they will subcontract with their preferred providers. And in this case, this particular previous applicant would probably be an applicant to their COC as opposed to being an applicant to us. So there's an option for them to apply on recommendation of their COC, or if the COC is just taking the entire allocation, then they're going to subcontract with whatever providers they prefer. And I think that in this case, that's probably what they're asking about.
Thank you, Tuesday. And Amanda. Back to you, Amanda.
Are there written instructions about filling in the budget section that we can reference? I do not believe there is, Trisha, but if you want to email the NOFA inbox, we would be happy to jump on a Teams call with you to go through it and help you fill in the budget. And then we have another question. If the COC is planning to have their regular collaborative applicant / AE apply for the funds, then select sub-grantee projects through a competitive process, do they need to conduct a competitive process to select the regular collaborative applicant AE as the entity they recommend to submit the eCivis application, enter the standard agreement with HCD, and administer the funds?
Well, the way I would answer is that, do you happen to know, Amanda, if that question from a COC who are asking about the process that they're required to do, or do you know if it's coming from a grant?
And Andrea, I believe, is with the COC now. So.
Oh, okay. So the COC has a selection process for who they choose. It's a requirement. It's a federal requirement of the ESG program. So if I understand the question correctly, I might have to have you reread it, or Andrea might have to restate the question. The COC has the process in place. So it is up to them how they're going to select, whether it's the preferred that they usually do as part of, or if it's something else.
So Andrea, as the COC, your agency can apply for the funds like we were just saying, or you can do your competitive process and select 2 agencies to apply to HCD directly. And then they would be funded by HCD. So it's really up to your COC what they would like to do. And if we're not understanding your question, please raise your hand and we would be happy to take you off mute. Okay. The next question, for the COC recommendation form, do we enter the proposed budget by component? Do we enter the 3-year amount or the 1-year amount?
Scott, are you applying for 3 years or 1 year? Just for my own knowledge.
I don't remember what we put on the form.
Okay. This, in it, always put the 1 year amount, and then we can always update that. When in doubt, put the 1 year amount. That rhymes. I meant it to.
Mhm.
However, if you need more clarification on that, Scott, you can reach out to me directly and we can talk about it, but we would recommend that you do the 1 year amount.
Okay. For the goal section, do we just fill in target units? Do we fill in direct cost / match amounts now or later when reporting? So you're going to fill in for the direct costs / match amounts, you would fill that in now. And then when you do your annual performance report is when you would put in the actual match. And then for the goal section, it's the anticipated amount, number of people served, beds, whatever component you're applying for. And then again on the APR would be the actuals. Next question. Can you please clarify what the policy and procedure letters are? I will let you take that one Tuesday.
Absolutely, I have this one. Tim, hi. I have been sending out approval letters for emergency shelter, or I'm sorry, for rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention. Policies and procedures. I believe you've already received yours because yours have been approved prior to this particular grant year. So you should still have a letter. If you don't, reach out to me and I'll get you a letter that does have approval. It just makes it so that we don't have to review them again in the upcoming year. Everybody should have that has approved a rapid rehousing should have gotten a letter. If you haven't, reach out to me and I will get that to you. And if I haven't been able to approve your rapid rehousing, I've reached out to you and asked you to make corrections. Um, but there should be a letter. It's a really brief letter that just says, "Hey, everything's okay for now." There will be a few things that I need to review for the upcoming grant year that are different. There are changes from our what we require for our 2023 year, and hopefully that answered your question.
So, I just wanted to talk about the racial equity spreadsheet. We just got offered by someone who had downloaded the toolkit from HUD's website before it was taken down. It was the 4.0 version, and they are going to email it to us. And so we are going to upload that to the solicitation files. And so if you have not started filling out the spreadsheet in the solicitation files that we put in there, and you would like to use the HUD toolkit, the 4.0 version, we will put that in there for you guys. You are welcome to use either version. So please don't feel obligated to use one or the other, but if you would like to use HUD's version because that's easier for you, please feel free to go into the solicitation probably tomorrow or later today, and it will be there for you all to use. We have one question left, and it's kind of a long one. I have a question regarding the ESG indirect cost budget worksheet based on the NOFA. This portion of the budget is for eligible administrative activities for the COC. It also states the department will share 1% of the federal funds for all those awarded for direct administrative costs. My question is, should I leave this area blank? Or is there a dollar amount you could provide to include on the COT proposed budget? Any guidance on this would be much appreciated.
So, Amanda, if I understand the question correctly, they're asking about what amount to put in their indirect costs.
Yeah, but then they're talking about admin. Nancy, if you would like to come off mute, I think we're a little confused on if you're asking about admin or indirect costs or both. That might be helpful. Can anyone take her off of mute?
Okay, it's for a nonprofit. So admin is not, nonprofits aren't eligible for that, correct?
Hmm?
That is correct. Admin is only available for units of government.
And so, and then the question regarding indirect costs, that total would be established by looking at the region's 1-year total, right? Or proposed allocation? Or,
Well, the
well, no,
amounts
the
the amounts
project review. Yeah,
for indirect costs
it finishes
for
the project. Yeah,
I apologize.
I
The
got you,
amounts of
Tuesday.
indirect costs for admin wouldn't be relevant if they're not a
Right,
unit of government. They
right,
can have indirect costs for admin
right.
if they are a unit of government.
Yeah. I think we covered it there, Nancy, but if we didn't quite get the gist of what you're saying, please shoot us an email in the NOFA inbox.
Hmm.
And sometimes, the written word is a little easier to break down.
And we do have a hand raised in our chat. Our Amy Wyatt has her hand raised.
Does anyone know how to unmute?
The host should be able to unmute.
Is that Tim or Geo?
Hold on. Let me see. Um, okay, there we go.
Awesome. Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. I did put it in the chat just as a safeguard, but we have, this is specific to rapid rehousing as an eligible activity. We have a tribal entity that never applied for ESG state funding before, and they have a question about if they can provide rental assistance specifically to mobile home parks. So their region that's the only available housing for this tribal entity is mobile home parks. So before they even think of applying, they just want to confirm that they can use funding to assist with the rental assistance for mobile home parks.
This is a twofold
Uh,
answer. The answer to the question for the mobile home parks is yes, you can use that rental assistance in the mobile home parks. I believe that we're not extending this application to tribal entities.
Yeah, there's as per regulation, they are
Yeah.
still not eligible applicants for ESG.
Oh, okay.
We are working on getting
But
that resolved,
yes,
but
we're
we're not
doing
able
our
to go
best.
into we're not going to be able to go into contract in the ways that our requirements have in line with tribal entities, and it's a disappointment.
Okay, thank you. I'll let them know. Thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely.
There's one question follow up on including costs in our goal section. We include a cost for each subcategory, such as age, demographic area, and there shouldn't be any costs associated to the goals section unless there might be one for like cost per bed, but I can't remember exactly, but there shouldn't be any costs for each goal category. It should just be numbers, like number of people served. And then Nancy responded and she said it I looked at the email again, the applicant is a city.
So Tuesday verifying that the government entity
Yeah,
is
yes,
eligible.
they are eligible for administrative costs, and they are also eligible to claim indirect costs for their admin. So if they were claiming $20,000 of admin costs, then they can do up to 15% of that as indirect costs. And you would
Thank
enter
you.
that in the budget section as Tim showed earlier.
My apologies for interrupting Tuesday. Thank you for
Mhm.
responding. And it looks like we're about at the time to wrap up, and I don't think we have an open question. So how's that for timing? Gio, if we go to the next slide. And we just have our standard wrap-up slides here, our ESG resources page. You can go online and click on the ESG webpage, and all of the information that we touched on today is located there, as well as resources and forums and archives if you want to look through. The ESG NOFA is also located there. And then the ESG program team contact, the ESG NOFA inbox address is listed below. Next slide, please. Please follow us on social media. Our links are listed here. Next slide, please. And as always, we like to close with this one. Join our team if you're interested in helping us further our mission here in California. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap this office hours up. I'd like to thank everyone for participating in today's session. Great questions. We really appreciate that. And I also want to thank Tim and the rest of the HCD ESG team. And we will see you in 2 weeks at the March 12th ESG office hours session. Thank you so much, and we'll hear from you soon. Bye-bye.